On this week's episode, The Invisible Man reappears in theaters. Can Henry Cavill be super enough? Be super enough? Be super enough for Wolverine? And movie sequels we want to see now. I mean right now. All this and more as we once again delve into the pop culture cosmos. And we're back with another episode of the Pop Culture Cosmos. It's Gerald Glassford coming right back at you here from Pop Culture Cosmos, the Lakers Fast Break, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, and Game Source. Thank you so much for listening to all of our great programs. But it wouldn't be a Pop Culture Cosmos without my good friend. He's our own Wolverine of Pop Culture Cosmos. You got to check out what he's doing today at popculturecosmos.wordpress.com. Also, as well, his great show, Topicocalypse. And of course, you got to get his awesome book, Congratulations, You Suck. It is my good friend. It is Josh Peterson. What's up, man?
Hey, man. I actually just finished watching, or I'm in the midst of watching Altered Carbon. I know we're going to talk about that, but I'm really excited about it. It's actually pretty good so far.
Well, there you go. With those animanium claws you got going on there as our own version of Wolverine, we'll go ahead and talk a lot about what's coming up for the Netflix series Altered Carbon as it goes ahead, and season 2 is now here. Anthony Mackie is now headed up as the lead role. So we'll talk about that coming up here in a bit. But also as well, speaking of Netflix, someone who stars in a major Netflix series, The Witcher, aka Henry Cavill, is being rumored as possibly being the next Wolverine. We'll talk about that concept, if that's something that we're good with, that's something that maybe we're not so good with, coming up here later in the episode as well. Plus, we're going to be talking about Baldur's Gate 3, which is an upcoming RTS from the folks that made the Divinity Original Sin series. So we're going to talk about to see if Baldur's Gate 3 really can bridge the gap between action and RTS gaming. And then also we're going to be talking about and then also our good friend Daphne Matthew from the Walking Dead fan base and Talking to Dead 18+. She comes on back to give us an update what's going on with The Walking Dead and some of the characters that are on right now that maybe or maybe not should have been on the show in the first place. We'll talk about Negan primarily and all the things that are going on with him, but also as well the departure of Michonne coming up here in a little bit, plus a possible return for Maggie. So we're going to be talking about all those variables and more coming up here in a bit on the back end of the show when Daphne Matthews stops by later in the program. But I'll tell you what, if you get a chance, listen to our last episode, the PC Multiverse. Josh and I had some real down-to-earth talk about what's going on here. I mean, very topical program, which included a lot of talk about the coronavirus and how it will affect and how it is already affecting a lot of pop culture elements out there. So if you get a chance, please listen to our show. It's available right now on the Pop Culture Cosmos channel, wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, you can always hear our shows each week, 7 days a week on radio stations worldwide, including our newest station. And we also want to give a big hello to Nova Star Entertainment. Well, my friend, before we go ahead and talk about all that great stuff that I just mentioned, I do want to give people an update at the box office, and The Invisible Man from Universal Pictures. This was not exactly how they envisioned it a few years ago when they went ahead and released The Mummy, and they were talking about the dark universe and tying everything all together between all these monster properties that they had. But you know what? This might be a better way to go about it, because The Invisible Man earned top dollar at the box office, earning close to $30 million domestically and about another $40 to $45 million worldwide, which for a movie that was only made for $7 million is a pretty nice pickup. And it looks like it might be headed to maybe about $100 million overall, and even more than that worldwide when all is said and done. The reason why I say this might be this was a better approach by Universal is it is more cost effective. It still had a hook that got in everybody, being that it was I think somebody relating into the optics. The guy involved, the individual involved that was the quote unquote Invisible Man, he was a specialist in optics that faked his own death to go ahead and terrorize his ex-girlfriend and all that. So that's pretty much the basis of the movie. And then he goes all wacko and, it gets all creepy from there. But this might have been a better way to go than what they had planned 3-4 years ago. No, the Invisible Man doesn't tie into a dark universe per se as of this time, but this movie did prove to make a profit and will make a profit at the end. And if they continue to go this lower budget route, you never know. They could tie things together, and the dark universe might not be so dead after all.
Wait, did you say this only cost $7 million to make?
Before any advertising, yes. Production's about $7 million. And that is with the CGI effects that they added in there, obviously to make him invisible and all that. And he was off screen the whole time when he was interacting with other actors and all that, in the motion capture suit and all that. So yeah, it was a CGI effort, but they managed to keep the costs low. I applaud Universal Studios for doing it, and it looks like it was the right move because looks like when all is said and done, they're going to make a nice, tidy profit on this movie.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. Well, I guess that kind of goes to show you that practical effects are still incredibly useful. So I imagine they kind of he's probably had some kind of green screen suit going on, or they just had the objects, they rotoscoped objects in there somehow and had it go frame by frame. But that's really cool. I mean, it just goes to show you like how far you don't necessarily need like a huge Hollywood budget to make something good. And like I honestly don't have any interest in seeing this movie, but if it's doing that well and is that cheap to make, and the trailers looked really good. So I mean, there's got to be something professional to it, and especially if people are enjoying it. It's got some good talent in it as well. So yeah, good for them. And like you said about the dark universe thing, do you think that they would make this the launching board?
I would have to say that they would need another success story like this, because you got to remember, not only do they have the Invisible Man property, they also have the Mummy, Dracula, Frankenstein, the Wolfman. You go on down the line like that, and the Wolfman or Frankenstein or anything that they come up with next, whatever they go ahead and build into today's environment, because they would have to adapt whatever it is they do next within today's environment. Whether, even if it's another sequel to the Invisible Man, they obviously have to keep it within a current time frame. They still have to go ahead and make it somewhat relevant today. And I think that if they do so and they find another success with, let's say, I don't know, let's throw out there Bride of Frankenstein. Let's just throw that one out there. Let's just say they come out with a Bride of Frankenstein and are able to successfully modernize it and for a low cost be able to have a success story with that. That could get the motor running again and get the speculation going again on a possible dark universe and tie all these things together, tie all these properties together in the way that Universal was hoping, just a few years back when Tom Cruise was coming out and with Russell Crowe in The Mummy, which unfortunately I sat through, and I can't get 2 hours of my life back. But it just will say at this point in time, it's something that they should have done possibly in the first place. But at that time, what was it, 2015, 2016? I'm sorry. I think it was 2016, in that area, 2016, 2017. And they were really high up. Everybody was really geared in Hollywood to try and create that next universe, that next chain of events, that next chain of movies that they could all tie in together. DC was so really, invested in doing so, and everybody else was trying to come up with the different kind of format that they could go ahead and tie these movies in together to build an overarching narrative, because they saw the success that Marvel had with it. Could they do that now? There's a possibility with the Invisible Man, but they've got to keep the costs low, because if the costs start to rise again, then the risks of another Mummy could even be more prominent if that's the case. But I think if they keep the costs low, there is always that possibility that they could get all these monsters ahead in the long run and tie them together in some form of dark universe type fashion. So I wouldn't put it out of the realm entirely, but if from all from all indications of what went on in the Invisible Man, as of this point in time, there's no dark universe tie-in as of yet. But that's not something that I think Universal would rule out if they have a line of success stories with this. I guess the monster creature type format. If they go ahead and follow to this format, if they go high budget again, then all bets are off again, my friend. We'll just have another situation with the Mummy.
Well, I almost feel like it's better to go in there not expecting to make a connected universe for anything and then seeing how it does on its own. And if it somehow works out that you can write a story that can easily backboard off of this one for another monster, then go ahead and do that. But every time, even if you look at Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 3, right? When they have all these different, they're trying to set up all these different properties because I know they've been talking for a while about doing a Venom movie. And as long as they're, and same thing with Amazing Spider-Man 2, they failed at this twice, but they, as long as if you're going in there with the intentions of setting up like a cinematic universe, it doesn't always work out. Marvel got lucky and did it right, but then, you look at these other movies and it feels too busy. That's what The Mummy felt like. It was too busy. Why would he end up with Dr. Jekyll, or Mr. Hyde or whatever, Russell Crowe's character? Like, there's a lot of things. They're just kind of forcing it down your throat instead of letting it develop organically. And if they were to use this movie as like a backboard and then have something, even just a reference, the Invisible Man in so and so city, like that would be all they would need to connect the universe, right? If they were to make another, like a Creature from the Black Lagoon or whatever, the Mummy, whatever tie-in they want to do, let it happen organically.
Because they did put a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde in there, in the one with Tom Cruise, but they also referenced Van Helsing too, if you remember correctly. So they also referenced him in the movie in that context. So you could literally have, I think the Van Helsing character, if you decided to tie him into all these loosely, very loosely, as someone who's just like an investigative reporter or someone that's an investigator or something like that, into the Invisible Man and all that, and tie it in that way later on, you could do that. I think that would work. But it'd have to be very careful about doing it and not being as overt as you did it previously, because when they force fed you to try to go ahead in that dark universe, you and I, if you check out the pop culture cosmos from that time about the dark universe, when you and I were just like, oh, this was just a bad idea.
Yeah, and here's the thing, and interrupt me if you think if your experience is different from mine, but like I am a huge fan of the Brendan Fraser Mummy movies. The third one was not excellent, but they were just fun popcorn flicks. You could
the first two were. I can agree with you. The first two were.
So you could sit there and just like have a good time with it. And one of the greatest things about that movie was just the place where it took place, right? Being in Egypt, getting to dive into all the Egyptian mythology and seeing all like the, this is cursed and that is cursed type thing. Like, you didn't get that in Tom Cruise's Mummy. You got a setting in London, and then you have all these other things being forced down your throat. The scenery was not appealing at all. Like, it felt too dark and too blurry. Like, everything just was not, it didn't feel good to watch.
No, it didn't feel good at all. And I was so overbloated. I think there was just so much put on it, and it just couldn't deliver, because that was supposed to have been the backbone of this entire dark universe. And, unfortunately it didn't materialize. And it was just truly awful watching for the 2 hours that I saw it in the theaters. And I regret actually making the decision to go ahead and watch it in the theaters. But yes, it kind of put everything on the back burner for the dark universe. In fact, we just thought it was done. We thought it was dead. And, it's probably still to some extent, it could be dead still. I don't want to start get people's hopes up on tying all the stuff in. But if Universal comes out, let's say next year, with a Wolfman or a Dracula or something in that realm of one of these monster properties that they have, and they do another low budget, let's say another $10, $15 million costing, movie that gets them another $50 to $100 to $150 million worldwide, then you start seeing possibilities there that there is an interest, but it's very limited. So as long as you keep it within those limits, this could be something that could work out long term for Universal. It's just how do you want to go about it? And it looks like after a few years, they're finally understanding how to go about and utilize these properties that they have when it concerns the monster movies from lore from the 50s and whatnot. I'm just glad they're finally actually finding. I'm just glad they're actually finding a good use for these properties. And with the success of the Invisible Man, let's hope Universal gets it right for, at least if they don't do it, or even if they do it, a possible Dark Universe down the road. What are your thoughts out there on the Invisible Man? Did you like it? Did you like him reappearing in theaters, and did you check it out already? Share us your thoughts, popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Well, Josh, I wanted to ask you your thoughts on Altered Carbon Season 2. It came out recently on Netflix. I know it's something you were interested in. Season 1 was kind of hard for me to really get into, even though it had the similarities of a world that you and I were both very fond of in Blade Runner. So I want to hear your thoughts on Altered Carbon Season 2 as you started watching it. I know you're progressing through it at this point in time. Anthony Mackie is now the lead character in the role as far as because of the skin. You can really just change the actors. They're interchangeable as far as whoever you want in the lead role to get a new and different perspective. Anthony Mackie is leading the way this time around in Altered Carbon. And let me ask you this. So far, are you liking what you're seeing?
I am, yes. Anthony Mackie does a really good job of capturing I don't know, just the essence of Kovacs, right? From the last season. He's very dark and very broody. And you think that going in, hearing about Anthony Mackie playing this part, you think that like you go in after hearing about or seeing him play the Falcon and like the roles where it's like he can be serious but doesn't ever take himself too seriously. Like he does brooding really well. Like he is I could see honestly like he could play Batman, and that might be people out there be like, whoa, 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 let's slow down here. But he could play Batman. Like he's very broody, he's very good at it. And seeing him in this role has been kind of like shows how dynamic he is as an actor, because we only really get to see one side of him in those Marvel films. But in this, like wow, he's got some acting chops on him. And as for the story, they do a good job. This is what Star Wars should do, right? Take place 200 to 300 years after the last movie. And so that way you can create a new story. The world can be the same, but create a new story. While they carried Kovacs over, he's still chasing after what's her name? The girl, remember his love interest from the first
I forget her
season?
name offhand, but yeah, I know who you're talking.
Falcon or something like that. But he's still chasing after her. She's in this series, like she's in this season, and she's kind of running around. I haven't really got to the reasons why. I'm only like 3 episodes in, but the story's really good. The acting is really good. I wish I had more to say, but I need to watch more of it. But so far I like where it's going. And the story is very dark. That whole idea of like, if we had the ability to live forever, does that give us the right to, and what would you do with all that time? And they kind of get into this idea that they didn't really discuss in the last one, the fact that as these people are living forever and putting their
consciousness into another body and all that,
their stacks and new sleeves, they're a little bit of their mind is like chipping away each time until they're just much like Poe the android, not android, but his little robot friend, his computer friend, like much like their minds defragment, so are people's do also, which is kind of an interesting concept they didn't really talk about in the last season. Have you watched it yet? Do you have any thoughts on it?
I only watched a little bit of it. Again, season 1, I really couldn't get through because I just didn't find it captivating enough for me, which maybe I'll go back and rewatch it, maybe get a better perspective on it. But now that I see Anthony Mackie, and you're right, he does the brooding thing very good in the short amount of time I've watched it, and is something that I think that I'll probably stick with more than what I did for season 1, just because of the fact that he's doing such a great job with it. And it's just the behind the scenes stuff as far as what you're seeing, as far as not only what you're looking at in front with what he's dealing with, but everything that goes on as far as the manipulation behind what is going, behind the sleeves and all that, and all the interest that lies there with the world and what's going on. I was hoping for a more expansive world in season one. And I just wasn't getting it. Season two looks like it's more about defining what's going on within the environment around what Anthony Mackie is dealing with, outside of just what Anthony Mackie is dealing with on a personal level. So to me, it's more captivating. So I'm looking forward to seeing more episodes. I'm a little bit behind you, so I got to catch up. I'm also watching other shows, including Amazon's Hunters and some other shows as well, Star Trek Picard. So I'm trying to make sure I keep up on all these programs that are streaming all over the place. So it is something, though, that's on my list to go ahead and try and enjoy more out of when it comes to Altered Carbon on Netflix. I know it's been a pretty good hit for Netflix. I'm not sure if they've greenlit for season 3 as of yet, but let me ask you this before we go ahead and touch on other subjects. With Altered Carbon, do you see a scenario where a season 3 is something that you would look forward to seeing?
It depends on how this one ends. If this ends and Kovach's story comes to an end, yeah, I mean, I guess I'd always be interested in returning to the world, but it would have to have a purpose. I know there's 3 books, and from what I understand, this one's based loosely on the second book. So I imagine there will be one more season, and then that will close off the trilogy of books, unless they try to, do a Harry Potter or something, split into 2. But I don't. It's how far would you be able to go in a world like this? Where does it all end? Does it end when they bring back permanent death, or where does it go, and it's that's the big question here. And especially with sci-fi shows, it took us so long to see a sequel to Blade Runner, because I'm sure there's probably they're having a hard time trying to figure out where is a worthy story for a world like this, a world this bleak and a world this dark. How do you end something like that and still, like, make people interested in it?
Excellent point. I think it would have to go back to a permanent death type scenario, because you could literally go season by season by season. And that's the advantage that they have with Altered Carbon, since the basis of it is, having the sleeves, and you're just going to go ahead and you have so many reasons why you can continue on the series for season after season. Just put someone new into the role each and every time, so they pop into a new sleeve. So you have that advantage. But if there is an endpoint, I would probably say, like you said, it would probably be something where, permanent death has to be on the horizon, and that would be something that you could close out the series with when you go ahead and do that. But when it comes to sequels, we'll be talking about that in a sec. But when it comes to Altered Carbon, I'll tell you what, it's something that I think that people ought to give a good chance to, especially with Anthony Mackie now in the role, with Josh saying that he's very good. And I think he's been very good brooding as well. So if you're interested in Altered Carbon, or if you gave it a chance before and you weren't really hanging with it like I did, go ahead and give season 2 another chance, because I think you'll be glad you did. What are your thoughts out there on Altered Carbon? You really enjoying it? You think this sci-fi series is going to stick out long term with a new person in the role, the lead role each and every time? Like that concept? Do you like that concept, or are you looking for something more in your science fiction? Share us your thoughts, popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Also as well, Pop Culture Cosmos, Humanity Media, and Game Source on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as well. Sequels, my friend. You just mentioned it when it concerns Blade Runner sequel. And obviously that was Blade Runner 2049, which we talk almost ad nauseum on this show. So this next subject, I was going to try and avoid any talk of Mass Effect, any talk of Blade Runner, and any talk of Uncharted. So I was going to try to avoid that. But you know what? We're going to talk about movie sequels that we want now, right now. So I'll ask you, my friend, I'll start off with you. What is one movie that you want to go ahead and see a sequel to right now?
Alita Battle Angel is my number one right now. they left that open, and there's what, six volumes of manga. I'd love to see more. They ended it on a good note, I would say, and I would love to see like where it goes next. That world felt so big and so vast, and there's so much like really cool mythology that they were kind of building up in the first film, and I'd love to see where it goes. What about yours though? What's your first one?
Well, with that one, because like you said, it ended on such a note where they wanted to go ahead and leave it open for you, because I think they were expecting a sequel, but I also think that Edward Norton's performance at the very end and who he played left it open for that. And I think if you want to get his involvement even more, you should go ahead and greenlight a signal and greenlight a sequel. That would be awesome if they went ahead and did that, because it was a pretty good movie. I enjoyed it. I thought it was worth it. I think it's worthy of a sequel. Whether or not it earned enough money, because it earned right around $400 million worldwide, and for a costly movie like that I'm not sure if it turned enough of a profit for it, but we'll see if it has that kind of room. You don't actually have to have it on a box office format. You could put it on Hulu or Disney Plus, since it is a Fox property.
Yeah, I agree, but the budget is I don't think it's in the budget. Like this world is it's far too big and it's too rich. Like would require a big budget to do something like that. I know they've done Star Wars on a lower budget, but like, with The Mandalorian, but I also feel like The Mandalorian is a lot smaller. The world that The Mandalorian takes place, like the set pieces are a lot smaller, whereas Alita Battle Angel takes place in this big old city, right? And there's supposed to be these big old space wars and the volumes coming up and stuff. So I just don't think that the budget would be there for something like that.
Well, one movie that I have in mind, I mean, I heard, recently that they are going to go ahead with the Knives Out 2. And I thought Knives Out, if you haven't seen it yet, it's a great movie. Rian Johnson has reaffirmed himself as a good director with that film. So it is worthy of all the praise that it got last year. So if you get a chance to check out Knives Out, it does earn itself a worthy, it earns itself, as a possibility of a sequel I'm hoping that that's the case, because it really was good the first time around. But the first movie I would go ahead and say that I think it really deserves a sequel that I would love to see right now is Mad Max Fury Road. And that was a movie that I felt bad after we talked about our list last year. Our list of the best movies of the decade, and I left that out, and I can't believe I did. But I watched it the other day, and I almost forgot how good it was, because I've seen it a couple times now, and it is really a great movie. And I think that it is definitely deserving of a sequel. The Mad Max universe, even though the Mad Max series, you could say it emanates from, the Road Warrior and all that earlier, many years ago and all that. I still think Mad Max Fury Road 2 would be an awesome place to start and awesome place to continue the series and the Mad Max whole universe like that. I think they are going ahead with a Mad Max sequel, Mad Max Fury Road sequel. I think there is plans, or if not, production it's in some form or fashion already underway on it. So I think that they are listening to the fans out there. I think it earned enough money to warrant a sequel. I know it is well thought of as far as from a critical standpoint, being that is one of the best movies of the year at the time it came out. Plus, also, like I said, should have been on our list, and I know for a fact it was on several best of the decade lists. So definitely, Mad Max Fury Road is worthy of a sequel, and I can't wait to see what happens when they go ahead and bring it out, because I know they're going to make a sequel for that one. What's next, my friend? I think it's something that I'm familiar with.
Mad Max was actually a really, really great movie. Like that's one it should go. I need to own it. I keep forgetting about it, and I should not forget about that movie.
Exactly. Same thing here. And that's why we just forgot about it. That should have been on our list for best movies of the decade. And I'm kicking myself in the rear end. I'm kicking myself for not having it on the list.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's been so many movies have come out since then. It's hard. Like we've just kind of been drowning in mediocre. Where like that movie really, really stood out
Absolutely, for all the right reasons.
for all the
So what's
right
up?
reasons. My
So
next film, I got Blade Runner. Like I would love to see that. I know we kind of beat that horse to death on here, but like I would love to see that brought to an end. Like give us the end of Deckard and his story. Bring that, end it. You know, did Ryan Gosling die in the end of the last Blade Runner? We don't know. Just bring that story to an end. Give us the closure that we need, and then go back to the Blade Runner universe again, or don't. You know, it doesn't matter. Just bring it to an end. I want to see
and there
how
was a
like
revolution, if you remember, there was a revolution that they looked like they were about ready to start as well.
yeah. So they were opening a big door, and I imagine they had plans for another sequel for it. I would just love to see that trilogy brought to it, or see a trilogy of films and the last one just wrap up the story. Give us like the Blade Runner 2049 was phenomenal, and it had so much like philosophical and theological things to chew on, and like I could watch that movie over and over and over again. So just bring it to an end. Let me see what happens, and then I can stop wondering about it.
Yeah, because I don't want to hear about how it's not made money, la 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 la. It's been one of the best selling movies since it came out on video and digital for a reason. It's such a beautiful movie to watch. I mean, I think people were very intimidated at the runtime. I think that was a lot of overhype on that. I think that's why it kept a lot of people away. But to see it on so many best movies of the year lists that it was on in 2017, it was our pick as the best movie of 2017, and it is something, like I said, I own personally on Blu-ray, and I know a lot of other people as well. So yes, I agree with you that there is still plenty of life in the Blade Runner universe, and I would love to see a Blade Runner 2052 or something like that shortly taking after the events of 2049. That would be great to see, and great to finalize a Blade Runner trilogy in that form or fashion. All right, for me, Tron Legacy is the next one I would do. I mean, that was a beautiful movie to watch back in 2010. I think it held up very well against its predecessor, the original Tron. I know Disney's making a Tron ride out there in Disney World. I already saw the construction underway on it. They should go ahead and hopefully, as they kick off that ride, it would be awesome if they kicked off another Legacy, another movie in the Tron series as a way to, kickstart that ride as well. I mean, a lot of people that are going to go on that ride don't have any clue exactly about what's going on with the world of Tron, because the 2010 movie did okay, but it didn't do super outstanding. It was a beautiful film to watch, a great movie, I think, in fact, and I think it deserves another. I think we deserve as fans another time in the Tron universe.
Yeah, whatever happened with that? I know they had a sequel planned, and it wasn't the fact that the last one didn't do.
It did like Alita. It's like in that,
Yeah,
that's
I mean,
like okay. You put Alita, Warcraft, Pacific Rim, and Tron Legacy all like in the same barrel. You put them all in because they all made in that $400 to $500 million range. Like they did okay, might have made their money back, might have not, or just missed, and they're well thought of, except for Warcraft. But Warcraft made money because of the, it was overseas and all that. But anyways, most of the, they're well thought of for the most part. And hopefully that we'll go see something like that. But that's pretty much what it came down to. Is Tron made money, but it didn't make Disney. It didn't make enough money from Disney just to go ahead and say, we got to greenlight it now. But it didn't. It didn't totally rule it out either.
right. Well, there was talk about it for a long time, and I know that it was in pre-production, and then it just shut down. Like they didn't do it. And this was long after the box office results came out for Tron Legacy. So that it was moving forward, but then it just kind of disappeared and no one ever talked about it again. So yes, I would love to go back to that world. I would love to see even like a Disney Plus show would be cool, just to they had set it up right. The programs were on their way of trying to escape the what do they call Nexus? Is that what it's called in there? Yeah, they're trying to escape the Nexus, and you know, Olivia Wilde's character got out, and she was with Garrett Hedlund, and they're like, you know, big things are changing, and it was a good movie. It was visually pleasing, and I'm wondering if it's because the old Tron is like it's like really old, you know, even compared to it doesn't have the same visual quality. Blade Runner can get away with that just because of what kind of film it is, but if you go in and watch like the Tron from the '80s, like it is hard to watch. I get that. So, I don't know.
But then again, before you say no to that, I mean, there's a reason why they're making a Tron ride, because there is still interest in the Tron property, at least on the Disney, at least on the Disney front.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, and I would love to see a sequel to Tron. I'd love to see people have more interest. I know there's a show on what Disney XD, I forget what it's called, but that cartoon lasted. I don't know if it might still be on. I don't know, but there is an interest in the franchise and the property. I'm wondering if they're just going to reboot it one day and then see what it does from there. But like it feels like if there were any time that was good for another Tron film, it would be right now, because we are in this age where software and technology and apps and everything uh are taking over.
Hold on, I'm checking my Pop Culture Cosmos app right now. Just checking it out right now. It tells me to continue on with the show. Okay. All right. So yes, that it would be a great thing to see as another installment into the Tron series. I would love it, and I know you would love it too. So I think it would be something that would be of great interest to a lot of people. But let's move on to your last one, my friend. What final movie do you think you would like to see right now a sequel of? Right now.
Okay, I had one, and as I said, it kind of slipped my mind. So I'm gonna say Signs. I really liked that movie. I really like that movie. Like it still holds up today, and it left you with this big question of, oh no, are these things going to come back? You know, they talked about uh the scouting party, right? They talked about how these were like scouting parties and they'll come back years from now and there'll be, you know, they'll try again or something like that. So they did a great M. Night Shyamalan, like this was before he kind of like went off the rails a little bit, but like he did a great job with this, like creating those elements of horror, right? Those practical effects, the people in the alien suits. Like that was really cool. That was a really scary movie when I was a kid. So I would sit there and watch and I would be terrified. Even today, like I get chills just seeing like the alien leg going into the cornfield and stuff. And y- they never showed what happened next. They never showed like, do the aliens come back? Like, what's going on? And Mel Gibson could still play that role. Joaquin Phoenix could still get back in there. Like, I would love to see more of that world, just because it was so the setting, the acting, just the tone of the film. It was all really interesting to me. And of all of M. Night Shyamalan's movies, if I said I wanted to see a sequel to, that would be the one. You know, I don't really care about a Sixth Sense sequel or a Village sequel. You know, The Glass and Unbreakable and yada yada. Like Signs is where it's at for me when it comes to M. Night Shyamalan films.
And then last one is a movie that I see a lot on people's lists of movies that need to have a sequel come out right now, and that's Serenity. And that's for a lot of reasons that I think people know already that are big fans of that series, and big fans of that movie and the series that led it before it, because it's just a lot of fun. You know, people just want to go ahead and it's such a cult favorite. You know, not only the series, like I said, but the movie itself, Serenity. And I just would love to see that turn into a sequel, to see where these characters are at so many years later. It would be what I think 15 years later, so to speak. So at least, so it would be nice to see where Nathan Fillion and his friends, the ones that survived Serenity, where they would be ending up, and to see them all get together one last time in a Serenity 2 or something else of that nature that's tying into that universe. So I would love to see something like that for, you know, because it's such a beloved cult classic. I think when it comes down to cult classics, I think that's one of the definitive movies or definitive properties, pop culture properties as a whole, that I think that has a certain amount of love within a group that just keeps it going year after year after year. And I would love to see that. I would love to see Nathan Fillion get a chance to go ahead and reprise that role once again.
Yeah, there's always every year, there's whispers about a sequel to that. There's whispers about they can do a second season, a new season of Firefly. Are they gonna go back to Serenity, make another movie? I don't think that they'll ever go back, and I'm curious what the reason is for that because it feels like it would be a gold mine for them. But
Especially now that in the streaming world we live in.
right, especially now in the streaming world we live in. But Joss Whedon I don't even know what he's up to these days, but he is Firefly is definitely a property that should be revisited sooner rather than later, especially with the characters aging the way they are.
I
And
agree with
also the return of Picard too, right? Like that shows that maybe there is an interest in those shows.
Yep. It would be the case, and what people would love to see a Firefly 2 series, or if the movie Serenity ever gets a sequel, I think a lot of people that were into it before would love it. But I also think there would be enough interest on a regular consumer, regular general audience type deal that would create a lot of interest for a Serenity 2 as well. So what are your thoughts out there on movies that you would love to see a sequel now? And I mean right now. Share us your thoughts, popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Well, coming up after the break, it's our good friend Daphne Matthew from Talking the Dead and the Walking Dead fan base. She's stopping by to talk about all the latest goings on in the world of the Walking Dead. And is there still life in this once dying series? We'll talk about that coming up right after the break. This is the Pop Culture Cosmos. And we're back to close out the show. This is the Pop Culture Cosmos. Want to thank Daphne Matthew from the Walking Dead fan base and Talking the Dead 18 Plus for joining the show today. It's always great to have her on the program. But remember, if you get a chance to listen to our shows all around the world being played on radio 7 days a week, and of course, we're on every single major podcast format. And if you can, please go ahead and subscribe to our show. We've got over 1,000. We've got thousands of subscribers out there to our program. So we hope you join. Them, and also as well, if you can, give us a 5-star review. We truly appreciate that as well. Before we close out the show, my friend, we got to talk 2 more things. And the rumorville has started on Marvel, as it always is. There's always a rumor going on when it comes to Marvel. Who wants to be in the Marvel movies? Who could be in the Marvel movies? Etc. 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 Henry Cavill's name is the latest name to be dropped into a rumor of the Marvel Cinematic Universe that he could be playing the role of Wolverine. So I ask you, my friend, is this something you're interested in? Do you think it's the right move? Do you think it's super that this would happen? Sure, let me know, man, about the possibility, which is, again, in the rumor stage, of Henry Cavill possibly becoming the Wolverine.
I didn't think that it would be a good fit until I saw people showing these photos of him. Remember, he's totally jacked up on Man of Steel, and he's got the beard going. And I sit there and thinking to myself, you know what? He could do it. And I think about the gruff, and the broodiness that he shows during The Witcher. It could do well. And I know that DC is still, there are rumblings of him still playing Superman, and him eventually returning to that role. And to have him play, that's a trifecta, to have him be Superman and Wolverine and Geralt of Rivia. He'd be a really busy man. And I'm curious if his schedule would accommodate something of that magnitude, because I know The Witcher it's a long show. The filming season on that's long. I think the last season was 13 months. So would he be able to do it? And I imagine The Marvel film is like they're starting to film faster and faster now because they're pumping them out a lot faster. But like I still to have him be part of the Netflix universe, the DC universe, the MCU, like that would be a busy schedule, and I don't feel like he would be able to have all of that going for him, or he might kind of exhaust himself.
Well, first off, I don't think he would sign on as a Wolverine and stay as Superman. It's going to be either one or the other. I just don't think he would be allowed to do it.
Well, I mean, there's no like non-compete clauses in the superhero ones, from what I understand. They're allowed to because they have people in multiple franchises. Look at the directors working for both companies. But yeah, I mean, I don't. They would have to like it would if he were to still play Superman, it would have to be in like a cameo role, right? It wouldn't be like him taking on like a Man of Steel 2 or whatever it is. But I would much rather if I now that I'm thinking about it, I would much rather see him in a role like Wolverine, something fresh that he could own, something that's not riddled with anxiety like the DC universe is. I would love to see him play Wolverine, and I would love to see him keep playing Geralt of Rivia. So I think that if he had those two roles down, like he would be set, man. But also, like, I would hate to not see him be able to play in other films because he's good in movies outside those fantasy and superhero genres. Like I just watched Man from Uncle again a few weeks ago, and like he was really good in that movie. So I'd love to see him still be able to do other things too.
Well, we'll see how far that goes. I'm not as in love with it as you are. I'm just not. I mean, I know he can do brooding because obviously he's done that with Geralt. But as we were talking before with brooding and Anthony Mackie, how you were surprised how well he did. I was thinking myself, I don't see him with that extra little bit of meaning Henry Cavill being that having that extra little oomph in being the Wolverine. I'm not sure I'm as high on it as you are. I mean, you'd have to prove it to me. I seriously would have to prove it to me. I mean, because Hugh Jackman did such an outstanding job, and for me, basically exemplifies what we want to see in a Wolverine. Whoever plays it next has got a lot to live up to, and Henry Cavill playing that role, I'm not sure can get it done.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna say yes or no. Like I think he would be cool in that role. I honestly can't, but that might just be because at the moment I can't think of anybody else who would be any better. I was still holding out hope that Hugh Jackman would come back for it, and I know that there have been conversations had, but if Cavill takes on the role, then that like disappears, right? We don't get to see anything else from Jackman after that, so the door is shut, and I don't know if I can live with that.
Come back, Hugh Jackman, please come back. It's something I know. I know a lot of fans out there would love to see him reprise the role at least one more time within the confines of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I think if the Fox merger or the Fox purchase by Disney had come 5 years ago, I think we would have seen Hugh Jackman actually be a major part of the MCU. And it'd be always one of those what ifs that we will always talk about as pop culture fans for some time to come. I mean, we're going to talk about 10, 20 years down the line. Wouldn't it have been great if Hugh Jackman had been able to play Wolverine in the MCU? Wouldn't that be great? And we're going to be talking about that for a long time because Hugh Jackman as a Wolverine, pretty much every single time that he, laced up the claws, so to speak, did a great job each and every time. Even in those even in the worst of the X-Men movies, he was still always the one thing that you could see because he was so familiar with the role and knew how to get the best out of it. He was always the best part of whatever X-Men movie, no matter how good or bad it was.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, even like the ones that were really bad, like the Wolverine origin film, like that was still something people wanted to watch. The people didn't walk out of it going, "Oh, that was a horrible movie." They walked out of it going, "The movie wasn't so great, but it was cool to see Hugh Jackman back in the role again."
It was. So I'm not sure if Henry Cavill can be the guy to go ahead and try on the claws after Hugh Jackman. But again, we'll wait and see. It's only speculation and rumor at this point in time. Josh and I wanted to go ahead and discuss it to just throw it out there because that's the latest hot rumor for the MCU is that there's a possibility Henry Cavill could become the next Wolverine. What are your thoughts out there on Henry Cavill possibly being the next Wolverine? The next Wolverine. Do you think it's super, or do you think it's not so super? Share us your thoughts. PopCultureCosmos at yahoo.com. Well, it's been a great episode, my friend. I cannot thank you enough for being a part of it. But one last thing on the way out. Baldur's Gate 3. I don't know how you're feeling about this, but Baldur's Gate 3 is coming out from the makers of Divinity Original Sin. They're developing the game, and they showed off a lot at PAX East, I think. They showed off a lot of gameplay footage at PAX East last week. So I want to ask you, my friend, it is an RTS type adventure still that, it combines a lot of elements of, I say Gauntlet and D&D and how should I say, that type of adventure, a little bit of, people love those Oblivion, Elder Scrolls type format that it's within. And obviously, you're going, on this quest, on these quests and adventures and things of that nature within the confines of that. And it looks from a cinematic standpoint that they're obviously adding in those two to make it look, very much like it's a full environment that they're trying to create. But there's still that stigma that RTS gaming has that, people that are in the FPS or third-person shooters or things of that nature still have a hard time, like me, getting into, because RTS has always been a tough deal for me to get into. For me, it fits a certain niche and fits a certain crowd, but the developers are trying to get this blend going where there's a lot of action and RTS gaming combined. So I ask you, my friend, is Baldur's Gate 3 the answer to a lot of people's, I don't want to say wishes when it comes to combining action and RTS gaming, but is it a step in the right direction that will get a lot more gamers interested into a new form of RTS gaming?
I don't know. I mean, there's always people always want to reinvent the franchise, but with like these high world fantasy games, it's not so much about what the gameplay is like as it is the world and the story it exists in. The Baldur's Gate it's a franchise that's been around for a while, and they've kind of gone through their paces, and I know they're trying to reinvent their gameplay right now, but as much as I love the old Gauntlet games, like they just don't hold up today. Even like look at Final Fantasy games, like they went from having this separate battle system to like an active battle system, right? Like you're actually participating in it, and it's almost like the Devil May Cry style combat is what people want right now. So does Baldur's Gate, using a hybrid system, are they going to be able to reinvigorate themselves and get people interested in what they're doing? Possibly, but I mean, is that so much? Is gameplay, when it comes to these fantasy games, is gameplay what I don't know, like, is gameplay what people are after, or is it the world and like the mechanics that the game offers? Like to me, I love having an interesting world. I love having a lot of mythology. Like look at Elder Scrolls, I love the music and having so many places to explore, and the combat is boring, right? You block, you swing, or you shoot magic, and there's not really anything unique about that, and it's rather stale. Like I almost wish I didn't have to fight in Elder Scrolls, but I love the game and the world and everything else so much. That's what does it for me.
Well, I hope it does bridge that I hope it makes that bridge. I mean, I hope it bridges the gap. I hope it bridges that gap between action gaming and real-time strategy that will create a fun environment for those wanting to play the game, wanting to get in that world of Baldur's Gate. And here's hoping that the success of Baldur's Gate 3 will create more of an interest in real-time strategy gaming. What are your thoughts out there on Baldur's Gate 3? Are you ready to play it? Are you ready to get into the world of Baldur's Gate? Or is still that RTS type stigma still there for you that keeps you away from a game like Baldur's Gate 3? From Baldur's Gate 3. Share us your thoughts, popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Well, it's been an awesome episode. I just cannot thank enough to everyone. I cannot thank everyone enough for being a part. I cannot thank enough to everyone out there for being a part of today's episode. Man, I'm getting tired. I cannot thank enough to everyone out there for being a part of today's episode. On Friday, my friend, we're going Onward, because Onward comes out from Pixar to theaters. So definitely we're going to be talking about that as the latest voiceover for Tom Holland and the latest voiceover for Chris Pratt comes to theaters. So we'll talk about how well or maybe not so well that movie will do this weekend at theaters. So definitely looking forward to that as the latest entry from Pixar hits the big screen. So for Josh Peterson, this is Gerald Glassford. It's another beautiful day in paradise right here in the Pop Culture Cosmos. We thank you for listening. And here's hoping you have yourself a great